Without further ado, we have one more presenter I'd like to welcome up to the stage, Corinne Stroum. She's the head of emerging technologies at Scan Health Plan. She's going to be talking about how they're growing Scan's Insights Hub with data intelligence. So Corinne, without further ado, take it away.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, congratulations on making it this far. This has been a lot of talking. I am the last speaker between you and reception for health and life sciences, your dinner plans, your parties, what have you. So I'd first like to introduce Scan Health Plan. It's not familiar to a lot of folks. As someone living in the Pacific Northwest, it was new to me as well. Scan Health Plan is nearly 50 years old. It is a Medicare Advantage plan that was founded by senior activists for seniors. They were fed up with the state of care in aging and wanted to do better. It has grown and diversified in the years since then. We have nearly 300,000 members. We have expanded dramatically beyond California. And these have actually been problems when you think about the models that we've had to build and the technologies that we're bringing forth. One thing I want to note is we've also diversified. We are no longer just a health plan. Although we continue to evangelize our personalized products, we've also developed a lot of care delivery organizations. So to name a few, Embrace, Welcome Health, Healthcare in Action, My Place. All of these go to show that we have a unique set of problems because our data set is not just claims data anymore. And so when I show you the roadmap of what we'll be talking about today, one thing that's missing is a buzzword slide, which is our architecture. So like Mike, I'm not going to run you through our architecture because it will be everything that you've seen in the slides to date today. Medallion architecture, data lakes or blob storage. We're going to have a feature store. We use ML flow. We use the Databricks workflows as our pipelines. Nothing there is surprising. So there's no secret sauce about the way we've achieved this. Where I want your attention to go is what we've been able to achieve, how we tackle or overcome the challenges that we've come across, and how what you're hearing from me should also align with what you've heard in earlier sessions today. Let me take you back to 2022. I'm going to introduce you to a fictionalized member. Her name is Josephina. She's 76 years old, and she lives at home. She struggles with advanced chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, COPD, could have been on the slide. She also has some limitations with her activities of daily living. She isn't as mobile as she would like to be, and she could use some additional help. She's also what we call a dual enrollee. She is on Medicare and Medicaid. She is a low-income senior. This is actually a very common scenario. Members like Josephina typically receive a health risk assessment at least once a year. That's the mandated minimum, once a year. And that health risk assessment, or HRA, can unlock a number of additional benefits, but it relies on rules. So if you answer the questions in a very specific way, you will get additional benefits. But if you were unable to answer the questions to trigger the rules, you're going to wait until next year. And if your mobility changes in the year, you're waiting again for that assessment to come forth to get those additional benefits. We built a predictive model that looks for members like Josephina so that if their needs evolve over the course of the year, if they or their family members did not answer the questions in the health risk assessment to get those services, that will actually be triggered by the model. This model is called Nursing Facility Level of Care, or NFLOC. This model has changed people's lives because it allows for nursing quality in the home. Our mission is to keep seniors healthy and independent. We can bring nursing quality care into the home to help members like Josephina with their activities of daily living and ongoing chronic condition maintenance and monitoring. Nearly 100 members like Josephina have actually been identified and engaged through this model. And again, that doesn't seem like a lot, but when it fundamentally changes your life, it is a lot. So on the other side, we don't just serve our members with some of the work on our platform, we serve our employees as well. I constantly refer to our contact center employees, our member services advocates, as our superheroes. They are walking, talking encyclopedias. They know about all of our benefits, all of the states that we work in, all of our diversified care delivery entities, and they will be able to go from call to call answering questions about each one of those products, those services, those needs. It's stunning. This is a very high attrition, high burnout job. It's a fundamental workforce management issue. We just this month, actually in May, we rolled out a Gen AI solution to augment our member services advocates. And so I know earlier someone made mention of eliminating jobs through AI. What I love about this use case is that this is the exact opposite. This is not Klarna laying off customer service employees to replace with chatbots. This is us using the chatbots to bolster our customer services agents. What we do is we have real-time transcription, not unlike what's going on the bottom of the screen here, and I'm terrified of saying something that gets transcribed incorrectly, but those transcripts trigger talking points, generative talking points that are mining the knowledge base that we offer to our MSAs so that as they're having an organic conversation with the member, it's just suggesting which articles to read or which talking points to trigger. I'm really excited about this use case. I wish I had it in many more parts of my life. I want to take you a little bit on a journey. And as I was putting these slides together, I was asking my husband, well, 2017, it feels like a lifetime ago. So the only anchor I could come up with was this. In 2017, fidget spinners had their moment. So if you can think about where you were when you first saw a fidget spinner, that's where SCAN was when it started to envision the Insights Hub. I know, it's kind of a weird comparison. He didn't want me to include that. So we realized that we had kind of maxed out our on-prem SQL warehouse. Batch jobs were taking the whole night to run. We were getting files in on SFTPs or other file transfer mechanisms. They'd drop it in a folder. There are still some places where people were downloading files once a week. So it wasn't a great way of managing our data. We knew our EDW had reached its limits, but we also, if you about 2 hours ago went to the Percept Health session, Harish made a really interesting observation. When you move to the cloud, you also get the chance to adopt Gen AI, machine learning, a bunch of other benefits. You get to leapfrog forward because in many places in healthcare, you are that far behind. So when we realized we could make a move to advanced analytics by virtue of exploring the cloud, we spun up a work group called the Analytics Leadership Committee, and we looked around the organization for needs. Where could we address your needs with advanced analytics? We scored all of the use cases, and we built a roadmap. We also realized that where we had been dabbling in machine learning in the organization really needed a leg up. It was a lot of rogue data scientists who probably didn't even have the title of data science. They were working in a Jupyter notebook, and if they left the organization, heaven help us all, because we didn't have SharePoint online, and we don't know where those documents went. Those Python codes were gone. So imagine now we see this opportunity to strengthen our engineering rigor by moving to the cloud, to scale, and to build out better models. So this is how it played out. Concurrently with some of this work, I am including some other things that we do in the emerging technology realm. We have explored with virtual reality, as many do. What I like about this is actually for, it's like a cognitive behavioral training. This allows you to experience the cognitive and sensory changes associated with age, and we do a simulation like this during employee onboarding. It is extremely powerful. But while we were dabbling in some of that, we actually released our first machine learning solutions. And one of the first was nursing facility level of care, which I hold near and dear and just spoke about. Another was our natural language processing pipeline. And so I'm very excited to completely embarrass Kathleen over here, who's one of our data scientists who works on the NLP pipeline. Thank you for being here, Kathleen. What we've done here, again, no secret sauce. It's actually a lot of open source packages to understand when members do call for support, what are they asking about? How are they asking about it? It turns out that the things you learn from it allow you to be a more empathetic and celebratory companion on the phone than if you call and start net new with each phone call. We've used our NLP pipeline to influence policy and product changes. We've used it to enact service recovery processes on individual members, et cetera. Then it got a little wild. We built a lot of models. Not every model is an individual use case, and I'll explain in a few slides why that has to be the case. I also want you to think about the change that occurred between 2022 and beyond. So think of 2022 as being a before and after. These are very unique differences. Everything to the left of 2022 was niche. It was data scientists building tools for people who were comfortable perturbing their workflow to let models help them do their job. They were specially trained. All of a sudden, after 2022, we started releasing this to almost every employee. So we had to go on a journey of education, of policy, of training and upskilling. I've really enjoyed this element of my role because I'm an educator, and teaching people about the technology is foundational to the way that we envision workforce in the future. We've also rolled this out to our members themselves. Who among us has been to a medical appointment and wondered, what is this doctor even talking about? You Google things on your phone afterwards. You maybe get a printout that is probably in a font that's too small or confusing language. We have a benefit called a bridge. A bridge is a little app on your phone, and as the conversation is happening between you and your clinician, this is not for the doctor. This is for you, the recipient of the healthcare services. It's listening, it's taking notes, and after the fact, you can understand what just happened. It brings it to your language. You can tap words to understand what they mean. So we're trying to make this technology as accessible as possible with our Insights Hub. This is how our user research team thinks about our members' journey with SCAN. These are the major phases. And I use this not only because I think it's exceptional that our data science team is embedded in the same department as our user research team, which says a lot, but because I think it shows some of the challenges that we have when working in the data science arena. Number one, you'll notice there aren't a ton of use cases in the pre-effective phase or the initiate coverage and care phase. Does anyone know why that might be? We don't have any data about the members at that time. We are data starved when our members first join us. We have some demographics, maybe we have some enrollment history, but there's very little upon which we can build a predictive model. So instead, you'll see that the first thing that comes in is that natural language pipeline. And that follows all the way through the member's journey with SCAN. We're always listening because we always want to do right by our members. Within this, you'll see we have a pretty heavy element of models in our ongoing care phase. That's because our charter here is to prevent the need for urgent care, or what we call avoidable events. We're trying to anticipate and either ease that experience for you because someone knows that this is happening. Not everything we predict can actually be prevented, but you can definitely make that experience more gentle for the member. Models that are worth highlighting here are obviously the avoidable events model, even if you can't actually avoid them. We have a model here around med adherence. So this is understanding that many of our members are on many medications, and there's a whole effort around this called deprescribing. Deprescribing says if you're on enough medications that you need a pill organizer and you need someone to check in on you regularly, that you have one medication that causes side effects and another medication that manages the side effects. Oh, and some of these medications are also highly risky to seniors. We want to find out who's at risk of not taking those medications as prescribed. There could also be access or cost issues that drive that. We also then move into a series of models called PATH. These are very exciting models for me because they aren't claims-based. These are models that run for our care delivery organization, and they do a few things. Number one, they do risk stratification. They do it on clinical data, so notes, for example, not just claims data. They also route our clinicians so that if, for example, we know we're having a visit in a particular region, within that same geo-fence, we will get a list of other members who live nearby that we can actually go do a home visit with. So it does this path optimization like you might see with your large logistics companies. Lastly, two models that are tremendously influenced by our natural language pipeline are our retention and satisfaction models. And the best way I can describe that impact, it'll be in the next slide. But the goal is, again, if you know someone is having a good time or a bad time, your conversations with them will dramatically vary. And those models are heavily fed by our natural language pipeline. So the Insights Hub that we've built, it's working. It's working very well. And it's working across a number of different spaces. So within satisfaction, we know whether someone will report that they are unhappy or happy. And as such, we have a two-factor campaign. We either call and do empathy, and we sort of grouse with you, and we talk about the things that have happened to you, and we try and build you back up and correct. Or we engage with you and we say, you know, thank you for being a valuable member. Please make sure to refer us to your friends. Can you provide feedback to us? Do you want to participate in some of our user research? So again, our data science and user research teams are truly entwined. With retention, we want to keep growing as a business. We want to keep diversifying. But in this industry, a lot of people will join a plan for a year and they're out. And we want to know why that happens. It turns out that a lot of this can be tied to service experiences, and we look for that. Our NLP pipeline has, as I mentioned, influenced policies. We learned through that pipeline that a number of members who enrolled via Medicare.gov didn't choose their primary care physician. Their first few months with the plan were painful and confusing. So we moved up their welcome calls to help them get attached to a medical group, and we were able to reduce first-year disenrollment among those members. Lastly, as I mentioned, the medication adherence model is extremely powerful, and by migrating it from a rules-based system, much like our nursing facility level of care, to a simple light gradient boosting model, we were able to add another 1 member in 12 who we knew weren't going to take their medications properly. All right, I love this slide because there's no free lunch. None of this came without hard work, missteps, painful learning opportunities. So let's talk about those. Speaking back to Mike's buzzwords slide, I actually love taxonomies in healthcare. I'm super geeky about this. I love a good CPT, HCPCS, CVX, LOINC, ARC-CCS, Elix-Hauser weights, the Charlson comorbidities, CDC race and ethnicity codes. I could keep going, right? There's a lot of them, and all of this data, it's not really ours. It's data that needs to be loaded as Parquet files into Delta tables. We had to set up pipelines to do that because a lot of these definitions, a lot of these groupers are fundamental to how we define our features. So we had to create these pipelines to put these taxonomies in. But here's what I love about these taxonomies. They change all the time. They're not constant. They're changing at least annually. If you're the FDA, those drug lists change daily. So now try and build a stable machine learning model when the NDC code for a particular medication is likely to be gone next week. We have to then think about the implications to our feature store. and we have to think about feature versioning. Second is a unique challenge to the payer space, which is claims runout. Claims runout is akin to data leakage. In our space, we only see events when a bill has been rendered, a claim. This is, on average, for an outpatient professional claim, 21 days. So we don't know that the event has happened until we get that claim 21 days later. How do you train a model when the data that is available at time of scoring is not reflective of what has already occurred in the real world? We built out claims runout modeling into the way that we train certain models and certain features. Some data is available in real time. I love healthcare. Next up is segments and expansion markets. So as we move into these new markets, we face the problem that I showed you in our journey slide. We simply don't have data for training. We also create new products in the market each year. That also hinders our ability to have great training data. We've started to run parity tests to ensure that the models that we create either can extend to a new market, can be modified to a new market, or we need to forego them altogether. The behaviors of members on specific products are so different that we oftentimes have to split out a separate model for them. That's not a problem. We just have to be aware of that. Kathleen will tell you we have waged a real war on the note templates in our NLP pipeline. And one thing to also consider is when you work for a contact center, you can't use the same sentiment analyses that typically come out of box with any NLP libraries. Those were made for social media. They were generally trained on social media. They were not trained on a confused member calling because they got a letter in the mail that they don't understand. So we've had to tweak our pipeline a little bit to better accept it and to, very frankly, accept that the median sentiment is rather negative. So how do you call out something that's interesting? Lastly, COVID-19 was a very interesting few years for the topics of health equity. It foundationally reminded us that healthcare is biased. It is biased not only in the training data that we have, which reflects very much about access to care and about overall ability to obtain preventative care. It also told us that the models themselves can introduce more bias. It told us that the humans who interpret the models and take action on those models can also perform a resource allocation bias. Oh, this model has overstated this person's risk. It's fine. So we have had a long-standing health equity framework for the models that we build to ensure that we are not perpetuating any of these issues in our work. This is actually part of our standard machine learning development lifecycle. So we've achieved a lot, and I think about where we want to go in the next 2 to 3 years. So number one, I think in the buzzword bingo, Unity Catalog has got to be the free space. So this year, we actually, if you look back at some of those fidget spinner era work, we were established enough on Databricks that we had to move off of the Hive Metastore and onto Unity Catalog. That was a tremendous multi-team undertaking, and it's been so worth it. So now that we've done that, we've reintegrated with MLflow, the feature store, et cetera. We continue the integration there, so if I can, for a second, call back to some other things that we've done along the way. We did integrate with the Azure DevOps Git so that we could establish CI/CD as well. So we've continued to invest in the engineering rigor because, as was mentioned earlier, we don't want to think of, thank you, Cecilia, models as objects. They are truly living beings. So from here, we are very excited because we are days or weeks away from our first Delta sharing implementation, and this is a big deal. Most people tend to think of the relationship between the payer and the provider as being fraught. They are constantly sniping at each other. Someone wants to pay something, someone wants this denied. At the end of the day, we have one person that we both care about, and that is our members. And so we found another organization that is a provider organization, and we've decided that there's a file that we normally get on a rather lagged basis, but they have exposed a table to us so that we can view it in real time. And we're actually very excited about this because it ties into work we're doing on inflection points. When significant life events happen, new cancer diagnosis, hip fracture, first fall, etc., when those events happen, we'll be able to see that. And we'll be able to offer that safety net because we won't be calling 2-3 months later. We'll be calling within the week that it occurs. And that's possible through Delta sharing. Obviously, our journey with NLP has been a learning opportunity, and therefore, we are excited to take that even further, to understand in bulk what has happened to our members, to identify trends, to summarize call history. We are very excited about DBRX and using that to also assign topic labels to some of our unsupervised models. The LDA work that we do there will benefit greatly. And lastly, we do move a tremendous amount of data today. We just bulk move data. We are excited to move into model serving as well to sort of round out this year. Thank you for this opportunity.